Okay, so today we're going to play around with this proximity animation effect in Blender. It's using the geometry proximity node in a pretty simple node setup. So let's jump in. First, we start with a new blank scene. Then select the default cube and go to the modifier tab. Add the geometry nodes modifier and hit new. Now head to the geometry nodes tab. You can go ahead and delete this input group. Hit Shift+A and then search for a grid. Let's connect the mesh socket to the geometry socket on the group output. Using Shift-A, let's look for a node called Instance on Points. Let's drop that node in between our first two nodes, and it should auto-connect. Next, let's search for and add a cylinder. Drag the mesh output to the instance socket. Perfect. Now we have this completely unappealing shape. Let's tweak the grid values, and you can copy mine here, but feel free to play around with these to suit your needs. To smooth out these faces, we're going to add a smooth by angle node right here. And check Ignore Sharpness. Now, we can add a set position node after our instance on points. This will allow us to start adding randomness to this pile of cylinders. Cool, let's add a noise texture. And change the 3D to 4D. I'm just going to play around with these values here, but the most important part is you want to uncheck the normalize box. If we play with the distortion box, we can make our cylinders wiggle around. This isn't quite what we want though, so now let's add a combine XYZ node after our noise texture. This will let us individually control what parameters we want to change. Reconnect the noise shader to the XYZ socket. Now, if we play the distortion, we can see our cylinders move up and down on the Z axis. I want a taller cylinder, so I'm going to increase my depth a bit. Now, let's go back to our layout and hide our geometry node setup. Now type Shift-A, and we're going to add an icosphere. Next, hit Tab to get into edit mode. Click the Faces icon and hit A to make sure everything is selected. Click on the Insert Faces tool. Click and drag on the faces. You'll see this window pop up to the bottom left. In here, check Individual and raise the thickness. That looks good. Next, go to the Extrude tool. Click and hold down to open the submenu and go to Extrude along normals. Drag your faces out. That should work. Go back to Object mode and click into your Geometry node setup. With your cylinders selected, go back into the Geometry nodes tab. Now, let's bring in our icosphere by selecting it in the scene and drag it into our node setup. Go ahead and check this box to Relative. This will let our cylinders react to the relative position of our icosphere and not its original. Cool, so now hit Shift-A and search for the geometry proximity node. Drag the geometry socket of the icosphere to the one on this new node. Then drag distance off to the scale input of our instance on points node. We will now probably need to bring the cylinder radius down. But here we are, our cylinder geometry is now reacting to the proximity of our icosphere. One problem though. Do you see how our cylinders are reacting kind of weird? To fix that, back in our node setup, let's add a map range to our geometry proximity node. Play with the mapping values until you find a spread and size that you like. Again, you can copy me, but your scene values might be a bit different. Now, if we move our icosphere, you can see it looks a lot better. So in my example, one thing I did was add a keyframe to the distortion of our noise texture. You can do this by right-clicking on the value and clicking Insert Keyframe. I did this at the first and last frame of the animation. Now, in the Layout tab, we can just keyframe our icosphere to move however we want, and our geometry node setup will take care of the rest. The rest of the scene was just adding some well-placed area lights, playing with camera angles, and adding a red metallic texture to our icosphere. One thing that's important to note is I did a white reflective material to the cylinders. To do that, you have to add a set material node in the geometry node setup and select your material from the drop-down menu. Otherwise, it won't show up in your render. And here is our final render. This one node is super powerful and can be used to make loads of stuff. If you make anything cool from this video, I'd love to see it. And as always, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. Until next time.